History is filled with terrifying figures, but few are as chilling as Countess Elizabeth Báthory, the woman who would become known as the Blood Countess. This is the true, horrifying story of how absolute power, unchecked wealth, and a terrifying obsession with beauty created one of history's most monstrous serial killers. Our story begins in 17th century Hungary, a time of great turmoil and stark social divides. At the very top of this society was Elizabeth Báthory. Born into one of the most powerful and influential noble families in Europe, she was incredibly wealthy, highly educated, and related to kings and prime ministers. At just 15, she married into another powerful family, the Noblewoman clan, and became the lady of the formidable Lactis Castle, a remote fortress nestled in the mountains of what is now Slovakia. While her husband, Ferenc Nádasdy, was away fighting wars, Elizabeth was left to rule her vast estates and command hundreds of servants. It was here, within the cold stone walls of her castle, that her dark legend would take root. As Elizabeth aged, she grew increasingly obsessed with her fading beauty. She was renowned for her looks, and the thought of losing her youthful appearance drove her to extreme measures. Legend says the obsession turned deadly after she struck a servant girl, and a drop of the girl's blood landed on her skin. When she wiped it away, she believed her skin looked younger and more radiant in that spot. It was a twisted epiphany. The Countess became convinced that the blood of young virgin girls was a magical elixir of youth. This belief would unleash a reign of terror that lasted for over 2 decades. Báthory, along with 4 of her most trusted servants, began luring young peasant girls to Lactis Castle. They came with promises of well-paying jobs as servants, a chance to escape poverty, but once they passed through the castle gates, they never left. Instead of a new life, they found a nightmare of unimaginable cruelty. For years, these young women were subjected to horrific acts of torture. Accounts from the eventual trial described girls being beaten, burned, mutilated, and frozen in the winter snow. The Countess would then bathe in their blood, convinced it was restoring her youth. The torture was systematic and prolonged, designed to inflict the maximum amount of pain before death finally came. At first, the victims were local peasant girls. When they started disappearing, their families were too poor and powerless to challenge the mighty Countess. The disappearances were explained away as runaways or accidents. For years, the horrifying secret was kept within the castle walls. But Báthory's thirst for blood and her cruelty only grew. As the supply of local peasant girls dwindled, she and her accomplices grew bolder. They started targeting girls from the lower gentry, daughters of less powerful nobles, who were sent to the castle to learn courtly etiquette. This was her fatal mistake. When noble girls started to disappear, their families had the influence to demand an investigation. Rumors that had been whispered for years finally reached the ears of King Matthias II of Hungary. The sheer number of victims was staggering. While the official indictment listed 80 victims, eyewitnesses and survivors testified to a much higher number. Some accounts suggest the final tally could be over 650 young women and girls murdered over a period of 25 years. This would make Elizabeth Báthory not just the most prolific female serial killer, but one of the most prolific in all of history. The evidence was overwhelming. In December of 1610, the Hungarian authorities, led by Elizabeth's own cousin, raided Lactis Castle. They reportedly found the Countess in the middle of a gruesome scene, with victims dead, dying, and imprisoned within the castle's dungeons. Her accomplices were arrested, tried, and swiftly executed for their roles in the murders. But what about the Countess herself? Because of her noble blood and powerful family connections, she was deemed too important to face a public trial or execution. A public scandal involving such a high-ranking noble would have been a massive embarrassment to the aristocracy and the crown. So, instead of a hangman's noose, Elizabeth Báthory received a unique and terrifying punishment. She was sentenced to be walled up inside her own castle. Workers bricked up the windows and doors to a suite of rooms in Lactis, leaving only a small slot for food and water to be passed through. She was condemned to live out the rest of her days in solitary confinement, a prisoner in the very place where she had committed her unspeakable crimes. Elizabeth Báthory died 4 years later, in 1614, alone in her stone tomb. Her story serves as a chilling reminder of the horrors that can unfold when power goes unchecked. The legend of the Blood Countess has endured for centuries, a dark fairy tale rooted in a terrifying reality. Thank you for watching. If you found this story fascinating, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the darkest corners of history. See you next time.